Yeah, thanks, Jess. Well, you're talking about drivers, but right now in that pit lane before this practice session, there'll be so much work going on in this area, the suspension and the settings of the dampers, or the shock absorbers, as we call them in the real world. So let's just first of all have a little bit of a look at some vision I put together here. So this is last year's Gen 2 car versus Gen 3 car. I think already here this weekend at Townsville, that's looking really, really settled. So the teams are clearly already doing a good job. But have a look at this little bit of vision of Chaz Mostert from Ollie. This is nearly 200 kilometres an hour, and it shows you how important it is to have the shock absorbers working really nicely on this circuit. So I want to dive in and have a closer look at how these things work. Now, they're a controlled shock absorber. Everyone's got the same shock, and it's a real big part of tuning on our race cars. You can see it right in here, all four of them the same. In fact, I've got one right here. Let's just have a quick look at it. Made by Super Shock in Adelaide for Petters. It's a great Australian story. It's got some patented technology in it, and everyone's got the same thing. Really is a cool device. Now, how does it work? What you need to understand, there's two ways of shock work. In bump, when it's compressed. Let's do that. So that's what we call bump. See the spring there? Bump. And then rebound when it opens up. And it's got to do very different things, because when you hit those curbs, the speed of that might be 1.5 meters per second, right? But when you're turning corners, which is what the driver feels, and pitching and rolling, really important stuff, it might be moving at like 25 millimeters a second. You can see right there. Now, if we go inside the shock absorber, let's get out of that and have a closer look at actually how it does all that, because it is a magnificent device. And your road car at home is very similar to this. First of all, we've got, well, you won't have at home, we've got some adjusters, blue for bump, red for rebound. So they can get in there, they've got a little bit of adjustment to play with. But if we pull our shock absorber apart further, get rid of the spring, get rid of the body, this is the secret to a shock absorber, is this thing, this piston in between here. Let me turn my texture on. This piston here has really thin little washers on there, right? So, and they're stacked like this. We call them shock shims, and there's some on this side of the piston. And what happens is when you compress the shock absorber, this tube is full of fluid, and the fluid goes up here through some orifices, and the pressure bends those shims, right? So it opens them up so the fluid can go to this side. Then, when we go the other way, when it's in rebound, the fluid comes down through here, the pressure bends these shims, which opens it up and lets the fluid through onto this side. So that's how your shock absorber works, and then those tuning devices allow some fluid to pass through the center for a little bit of tuning, and there's a really clever little valve in the middle there. So that's a really cool component of it. But if we park all of that, still, the most important tuning device when we get to a circuit like this, which I love this bit, it's still the driver. We saw Shane Van Gisbergen's feet in America, right? Blew everyone away. You've got to do the chicane dance here at Townsville as well. It's very important as you approach a chicane, you can't just whack it. You release the brake at the exact right timing to take the weight off the front of the car so you can trim the curbs really nicely. I got some vision from Macaulay Jones last year, and you can see here, as he approaches the curb, watch his brake pedal, he'll release it at exactly the right moment to up on the curb, then he'll use his left foot just to settle the car a little bit. Watch this in between the two curbs. This is turn 7 and 8. There you go, just settles the car, then he'll release his left foot right now to take the weight off the front of the car, turbs it, bangs the curb, and away you go. I don't know if he got that exactly right, but that's a critical part of going fast around Townsville.